Hi, I'm Emily Simone.
And I'm Don Goldstein, and we're career advisors at the Graduate Center.
And this video is on how to tailor your resume. Writing strong bullet points is key when it comes to a resume. You want to start with strong action verbs that are essentially highlighting one main skill for that entire bullet point. Of course, there can be other skills inherent or embedded in that bullet point, but whatever you start with is the skill that employers are going to pick up on. You also want to say within that bullet point what you did, what action you took, but also to go beyond that action. What did that action lead to? What did you accomplish? And what was the impact of applying that skill or completing the task? Of course, it's great if you can quantify the results. You might talk about what you did, that you created a training manual that increased the interns' speed and understanding the aspects of the job. So maybe this resulted in cutting their training time by 50%. But if you don't necessarily have a number or you can't quantify your results, this is also okay. And you can write about your result in more anecdotal terms. So you might say that the training program that you created resulted in a decrease in time for the trainees to understand the program or something like that. So the bullet points, as much as you can, you want to make sure that the skill that you're starting with or the action verb is something that's important to that employer. So if the main job isn't about writing, you may not want to start your bullet point with wrote the training manual. Maybe you might start it with something else that you created or designed, although writing is important to many employers. And remember that you may not be able to write an accomplishment or include an accomplishment for every bullet point, but as many as you can, it may be helpful to provide some type of result or impact.
When you're tweaking or tailoring your resume, make sure to go back to the job description and take a look at what are the hard skills and soft skills that they're looking for so that you can make sure that those are reflected in your resume.
So just as a reminder from our sample job description, some of the hard skills included project management, data analysis, relationship or client management, and being able to communicate findings to a variety of audience members. And then our softer skills were attention to detail, being motivated, entrepreneurial, being organized, and including diversity.
This is Maria Hoffman's resume. Let's consider some of the points that Emily raised about crafting a compelling resume. You can see that Maria is using bullet points to break out the different responsibilities for each job. Also, she's starting each bullet point with strong action verbs. Utilizes, formulates, creates, designs, writes up, and trains. These action verbs tap into the specific skills that she wants to communicate to this particular employer. What about describing the impact these actions had for achieving the project or organization's goals? This might be an area where Maria could improve. These outcomes are a good start, but could be specified even further into concrete deliverables, outcomes, achievements, or success metrics whenever possible.
There are a lot of good things in this resume. There's a great deal of detail in the bullet points. The student shows a great deal of usage of skills, but there are some problems with it. It's very, very dense. There's a lot of information here, and when you write a resume, you always have to take into consideration the person reading the resume and think that the person reading it may have dozens of resumes on their desk. And if it's hard for them to read, they may just go on to the next one.
So a couple things that this person may want to consider in order to improve their resume is to prioritize their bullet points so they perhaps have less bullet points. General rule of thumb, although there's not a hard and fast number, might be 5 or 6 at the most. Of course, it may depend on what you decide is most important to communicate to this employer. This person may want to increase their margins. It doesn't need to be a 1-inch margin all the way around, but you also don't want the margin to be so close to the edge of the page, because this also makes the resume feel like it's very dense. Another thing to consider is whether a summary statement would be helpful. And this is basically a brief paragraph summarizing your main highlights of your skills and background. What's your match between what the employer is looking for and what you offer? And sometimes this is not necessary, but if you feel that employers might have a difficult time understanding what you bring to the table, what's transferable, especially if you're making a change or you have a eclectic background or a lot of skills, as this person may feel, then you may want to succinctly summarize that for them.
The tenses of the action verbs that start off the bullet points are very important. If it's a present job, those action verbs need to be in the present tense. If it's a past job, they need to be in the past tense. It's good to vary the action verbs, use different ones. In our career planning guide, there is a page of action verbs that any student can take a look at.
And when considering which action verbs to use, you also may want to refer back to that job posting and what you identified as the employer's desirable hard skills and soft skills. So if they are looking for someone, if communication is important to them, are you starting some of your verbs with communication-like skills, such as you wrote something, you presented, you edited, you communicated, and so on and so forth.
Abby has some questions about how to write a resume, so she took an appointment with our office.
So I have some professional experience from about 11 years ago, prior to starting graduate school, and I'm just wondering if that's something I should include on my resume.
Now, that's an interesting question, because usually the rule of thumb is that we don't include experiences that go back more than 10 years on a resume. But like a lot of things on the resume, it's very flexible. And I would say if that particular experience really pertains to the job that you're applying to, I would leave it on the resume.
I'm also looking at teaching positions, but my teaching experience is further down my resume right now, and I'm wondering if I can reorganize it categorically so that I have teaching experience up in front instead of organizing my resume chronologically.
Yes, that's a great idea, and you can definitely do that. Right now, you have your resume organized according to categories, but you're using research as your first category. So in looking for a teaching job, I would put teaching as your first category, expand what you have as part of your resume now concerning teaching. Mention more about what courses you taught, what you did as a teacher, maybe what unique methods you employed as a teacher. That would more highlight your teaching experience at the top of your resume. Keep in mind that almost the sole purpose of the resume is to get you a job interview. So always keep in mind who's reading the resume, what they're looking for, and what they're seeing on your resume.
Thanks for joining us today.